What up, what up? Hey, it's your boy. I'm coming back at you with some, my thoughts on UFC 93. And, as far as UFC 93, I gotta admit to you, it was a little bit hard for me to really get excited about this card. I mean, UFC 92 had the epic confrontation between, Vanderlei Silva and Quentin Jackson, of course, with the Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira finally going down and, a new light heavyweight champion. And, coming up, we got George St. Pierre versus BJ Penn for the for the welterweight championship. And this kind of falls in between. I mean, there ain't no titles here. No contenderships. It doesn't really seem like there's really anything going on. But these are also some good fighters. There's a lot of good fights on this card, and good times should really be had by all. So that's why I'm bothering doing this. And of course, I got to do it because I got to give some props to my special guest right here, the king of the monsters, Godzilla himself. Now, this man knows all about a fight. What you got to say about this card, bro? You're damn right. This should be a monstrous night of fights, despite having some small implications of itself. You got a Rich Franklin, the former middleweight champion of the UFC, versus Dan Henderson, the former welterweight champion of Pride. Now, Dan Henderson, like Godzilla, it's like my boy right there. He made a name for himself in Japan, tearing stuff up and proving himself to be the king at 180 pounds. 183, was it? But, and just like Godzilla in Final Wars, he has to take on his American counterpart, which will be Rich Franklin here. Now, as you know, in Godzilla Final Wars, the American Godzilla, that little overgrown iguana, he went down in 13 seconds. I see the American counterpart, Rich Franklin, put on a little bit more of a challenge here. Rich Franklin has a much cleaner striking than Dan Henderson. When it comes to striking, Dan is just basically about this. He's about the right hand. That thing, it paralyzed, Vanderlei Silva and allowed him to knock him out. And, the dude he's got a lot of power. Real tough guy, but as far as striking, Henderson, I mean, has good hands. He's very quick, and throws some leg kicks and mixes up strikes. He's a very, very, competent all-around fighter, and I think a very good striker. If he can avoid the right hand by Henderson, I think he can really win the striking thing. When it comes to the ground, so that's a whole nother story. Dan Henderson's known for his Greco-Roman wrestling and some pretty good ground and pound. I don't know if it's not exactly classic Tito, but he can really bring it on the ground. What's his name? Rich Franklin. He's no slouch either. He's got some good jiu-jitsu, from George Grisel. I think he's a brown belt. And usually, what I give to Franklin, I'm probably going to give him this fight probably by decision. I don't know if he'll be able to stop Dan Henderson, but I think his striking is just much more potent. His training is more up to date, and he's just more dynamic. I mean, he knows how to seize a moment. If Dan Henderson takes him down, he'll lock on it. He can lock on the submission. He can get up real fast, and I think Dan Henderson nail is what I have. Dan Henderson, I just think he's really going to have to show a lot more change in this particular battle. Because if he thinks a lot of people picking him to walk over Rich Franklin because Franklin looks so bad in the Silva fights, but I think Franklin has proven since that this dude is he is a badass. I mean, he's capable of standing in there with anybody except Anderson Silva. And I'll give him his props for this when I pick Franklin over Hendo. And what's going on? What else is going on? We got Mark Coleman versus Mauricio Shogun Rua. Now, last time we saw Mauricio Rua, he was a victim of Forrest Griffin in his UFC debut. From the Pride Grand Prix champion to the #1 light heavyweight in the world to one of the few men to ever be finished by Forrest Griffin. A lot of people blame the leg injury, but fuck that. No excuses. Forrest Griffin would have walked in there with one leg, you want to give him shit. But anyway, that being said, dude is a very tough fighter. You know, he's proven himself to be an elite fighter, but he has a torn ACL, was it? Then after the Griffin fight, he had surgery to repair that. Began training for a fight with Chuck Liddell. Then his ACL exploded, same leg. That is now ACL. I think back in the day that used to be the career ender. It was the killer. You get one of those, you're never going to come back, or you're never going to be the same, or something like that. It can really cripple you. However, with the advent of modern medicine, you know, people can come back. However, I don't know about already surgically repaired ACLs that, you know, just rupture out of nowhere. And usually to come back, it takes like a year, maybe a couple years of, you know, rehabilitation to get yourself right. Shogun, I believe, is coming back really, really fast in this particular case. And I'm not sure where to put this, you know. If he thinks he can fight, you know, I'm sure he'll do it. I'm sure he'll come back, but I still have a feeling he's rushing it. But at the same time, if he's going to rush it, I mean, Mark Coleman is, of course, you know, a little bit younger than Dirt. And Mark Coleman is coming off knee problems of his own. He was supposed to be the sacrificial lamb to Brock Lesnar instead of Heath Herring, who I think is a much better sacrificial lamb. It's his niche. But Mark Coleman has problems of his own, and plus, like Henderson, I don't know if to the degree of Henderson, he's had, you know, been a victim of archaic training. A lot of people think that the sport has really passed him by. Picking this fight, I'll probably go with Mauricio Hua. I think this is a good opportunity for Mauricio. Not only does it avenge a past loss in which, you know, that freak accident in which he broke his leg, or was it from a slam? Who cares? But anyway, Mauricio, this is the fight that, one of his last fights in Pride, where he broke his arm and people said he wasn't the same since. Well, if he can come back and have a great performance against Mark Coleman and beat him, this will reintroduce himself to the American public. I think that loss of Forrest Griffin can kind of be forgiven. But if he can do this, he can reintroduce himself to the American public, and with a couple more fights, this dude can get in title contention. This card also, you know, it has the UFC debut of Dennis King versus Alan Belcher. I'll be honest with you, I don't know jack about Dennis King. I know he knows boxing and jiu-jitsu. Alan Belcher, I know he's good with tie strikes. I think one of the most memorable times I've seen him, he gave to the rise of, you know, Jason Doomsday. But anyway, Dennis King, I think they're feeding Alan Belcher to King. I mean, Belcher's a good fighter, and if King screws up, he'll lose. But I'm pretty confident that Dennis King will win this fight. Marcus Davis, Chris Lytle, coin flip. Husamar and Jeremy Horn. Husamar Palhares, I think he's going to take that. The rest of the card features, you know, Thiago Silva victims and other throwaways. But they should all be good fights. I'm sure we'll all enjoy ourselves. And once again, I want to give a big thank you to all my subscribers, especially the new ones. I appreciate y'all giving me the love, and I hope you really enjoy the videos. I'm not that nonchalant, I just like to act. Anyway, I'll be with you in a second. And I just, once again, I also want to thank my boy Godzilla for showing up, taking time out of his schedule. Come see me, and maybe I'll talk to you again. What's up, man? Talk to him.